Oh, always exactly the right way to get started. Hi,
Mhm.
you guys. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Happy Friday. I feel like the only day of the week we can actually say that. So very excited to have everybody joining. I think this has set a record for our webinar registrations this year. Not for last year, but this year so far. So welcome everybody. We're excited to have you. For those of you who are brand new to us, we are Sam Sales Consulting. I am Sam McKenna and the CEO of our awesome 16 all-women team. We've been around for almost 5 years and we do everything from a sales training perspective, top of the funnel stuff. And then on the flip side, we know LinkedIn pretty well inside and out. We do LinkedIn executive branding, all sorts of trainings on social selling, why you should have a great profile, why you should show up on LinkedIn, and most importantly, why your executives should, and we'll help them show up. So if we can help you anything, give us a shout. But welcome today. We are going to tackle a ton of questions. We're going to show you a few quick examples and then hit your Q&A, of which were almost 100 questions that came in. Holy cannoli, you guys have a lot of questions about LinkedIn. But first, I'm going to pass over to Paige, our head of marketing, who, by the way, you sign up for our newsletters and laugh every single week, as you should have this morning. You can thank her. If you don't, drop in the chat how much you love our newsletter and other people should sign up. And Paige will go over some housekeeping details, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Sam. Welcome, everyone. Like she said, there are a ton of questions, so we're going to try to hit as many topics as possible. But if you do want to jump into the Q&A, you can do that at the bottom of your screen. And also let us know if you want to ask your question live or if you'd like Catherine or myself to ask your question anonymously. So with that, I think we're going to jump in. Oh, and I also should say we are giving a 20% discount to all attendees for our Sam Shorts packages. So that's playbooks, that's LinkedIn executive branding, our LinkedIn playbook, our sequencing playbook. There's a ton of content. So it's shorts.samsalesconsulting.com, and Catherine will drop the discount code. It's SamSales20. So be sure to check that out. The code is active until Monday. So with that, I think we'll jump into the first question. Oh, just kidding. Sam's gonna do a little breakdown, and then we'll get into our live questions.
Thanks, you guys, for the notes in the chat as well. And then always trying to keep Paige on her toes. We upped the discount this week from 15% to 20%. And I think I suggested that 16 minutes ago. So you're welcome, you guys. We definitely hope you take advantage of it. A couple of quick things. So what I wanted to talk about was a little bit about post structure. Why some posts do really well, why others don't do really well, and what we should think about when measuring our likes versus impressions. If this is, by the way, the first time you guys are attending, I talk really quickly in case you haven't noticed yet. We try to pack in as much as we can in this hour, but of course it's recorded and you'll get access to this recording as being part of it today. So let's talk about a couple of things. This is an example of a post that I wrote about 2 weeks ago, is basically celebrating the success of our first half of the year. Why did this do so well theoretically? So if you kind of look at this, right, if you check this out, 406 likes, right, 124 comments, 1 repost. For an outsider, you might look at this and be like, wow, this is so great. It did really well. So many people engaged, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at the impressions actually weren't that high for a post that did this well. Why? So I want you to think about something, and this is just a great way to measure the effectiveness of your posts. People get really, really hung up on likes, and they are important. Your likes and comments are important, but you shouldn't measure the end-all be-all success of your content by the likes, and here's why. What you want to think about is looking for something what's called dark social. So we're looking for a score that basically says, are the only people that liked your content the people that are in your network? Or was your content so interesting that people copied the link and then moved it somewhere else, shared it in a Slack community and WhatsApp texts and text chains, in their Slack groups with their BDR and sales team, et cetera. What we're looking for is to see what happened. Was it just your network, or did we hit the ultimate goal of dark social where it traveled elsewhere and brought new views in? The way you can do this is pretty simple. So take your likes, right? So I've got 406 and divide it by 21,372 impressions. When you divide that number, what we're looking for is something that it's very, very low, 0.01 or lower. When you hit 0.01, that is a killer sign. It means, right, in all likelihood, that people looked at your post, thought it was interesting, took it off, shared it with others, and it brought new views in. That is the whole goal of content. We want our network to see things, but what we really want is we want our network's network to see things. We want to bring in new eyeballs and we want to continuously grow our network. So while this is still wonderful, 21,000 people got to see the success that Sam Sales had in the first half of the year. When we're really thinking about if it's meaningful content, if it's not just sharing celebratory stuff, but it's sharing something tactical, actionable, we don't want to see this. We actually want to see lower, let's say lower numbers and higher impressions, or still this, but like 40, 50,000, 60,000 impressions. Now, let me tell you maybe a little bit why there too. It's our network. Our network isn't going to look at this and be like, we love Sam Sales. We want everybody to celebrate Sam Sales. Our network is just going to celebrate us, right? They're going to be excited for us, but it's not share worthy with other people. Let's look at something that is a little share worthy with someone else. So this is another post that I made about 3 weeks ago. There's a real big debate that happens on LinkedIn. Should I send any context in the connection requests that I send or not, right? Should I just play a volume game, connect with everybody, or should I take the time to send something meaningful every single time? My theory is you should always send something meaningful. And if you really look at it from just a basic, super selfish point of view, by you sending context in the connection requests, one, I think it will up you actually getting that connection, but two, it's a cheat code for you of why you connected with that person in the first place. So we wrote a post about this, right? Highly debatable. I basically took a pause for a couple of days on my connection request. I had 128 that amassed up in my connections. And this is what I said, right? Is when you think about this, if there's 128 connection requests, who am I going to go through first? Who am I going to accept through? I'm going to scroll through and I'm going to accept the ones that sent meaningful connections. They listed something, they wrote something, they took the time to show me that they know me, right? They made a meaningful effort versus just the volume game. So when you look at this, right, 243 likes, great. 44,000 impressions. So this is why I don't want you to get so hung up on the likes. They are important, but look at the impressions. This is the most valuable thing. Almost 45,000 human beings saw my perspective, whether they agreed with it or not, saw my perspective on this. Now I want to give you a quick cheat code here as well. When you think about this, how do we grow our network? Okay, this is wonderful. We succeeded. How do we make this even more successful? What do we do now? When you have these people that come and look at your posts, this is what happens. And for anybody in a C-suite role, in a leadership role, if you're posting content, if your executives are posting content, if you're in communications and your executives are posting content, this is critical. When you write something and it carries off the platform and brings new viewers in, this is what's going to happen. They're going to come, they're going to read your post, they're going to say, this is interesting, potentially. And then they're going to say, who is this person? They're going to click on my LinkedIn profile. They're going to read through my stuff, and then they're going to say, all right, and then they're going to leave. So they're usually not engaging. They're usually not commenting. They're usually not liking, and they're usually not connecting with me. But I have a lovely view of who has viewed my profile. I want you to pay attention to this, and I want to tell you just one thing here too. If you do not have LinkedIn Premium, or if you don't have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, the only thing you can see is the last 5 people who have looked at your profile. That's not so effective, especially if you're not on LinkedIn all day, every day, like some of us are. So what I would say is make the investment, probably not in premium, but make the investment in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Pay a little bit more for LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Holy hell, is it beneficial? Look at our LinkedIn prospecting playbook. It'll tell you exactly how to use it. If you're in sales, it's a gold mine of information. But the value here is that it'll show you the last 90 people, or the last people who looked at your profile in the last 90 days. So instead of having to go in every single day or every 5 people, you can go and you can see who's looked at your profile. And if they are in your ICP, if they're a 2nd degree connection, oh my gosh, if they are a 3rd degree connection, even better, and they're in your ICP, connect with them. So go in your profile views and say, oh, saw you swung by my profile. Just wanted to say hello and keep in touch. If there's anything I can do to be of help, let me know. Super light, super non-salesy. And what's amazing, this is one of the practices we do in LinkedIn executive branding for our clients, is that just the practice of you reaching out to them, one, effectively gets you a new subscriber, if you will, to your content. It adds somebody to your network. It ensures that now, instead of being a 2nd or a 3rd degree connection, that they'll have more direct access to your content. And on top of that, by you reaching out, oftentimes the person responds and says, oh my gosh, I really loved your post. We talk about this all the time. This was really insightful. And then you can spark a conversation. You can continue it rolling. You can send them some nurture materials or things you've written about to continue helping them. It's amazing. You just have to build this into your sales process. Last thing I want to talk about, and then we'll pop over to questions. as Paige always does, she lets me turn some of her mistakes into fun stuff. But we took a look at one of Paige's posts, and what I wanted to say about this is Paige wrote this incredible post about this incredible thing that happened at the Olympics. Now, 38 likes for something about motherhood, for something about something really cute and creative and awesome that happened, didn't do as well as it should have. Why? So what I want to talk to you about is the structure of this post. And what I want to say is we think about this hook, right? This is awesome. The systems aren't in place for mothers whatsoever. Allison Felix and every mom everywhere. Now, the thing is, right, we don't quite know what's going on in this quote. We don't know what this is really being talked about. And then Allison Felix, if you're not really heavy into the Olympics, you might not know who that is. So we want to think about is the most important first part of the success of your post is what the hook is. And if you can convince somebody to click see more to look at the rest of your post. Think of this like your headline. If you're not writing a great hook, right, that has the broadest TAM available, you might not get somebody to click see more and then to increase their dwell time. That's the second most important thing about your post is how long somebody stays on it. So Paige and I talked about this and we're like, what could a better hook have been? And maybe something saying along the lines of, you know, if you missed the applause for around the world, this year we celebrate the very first nursery being opened at the Olympics by this incredible human, Allison Felix. Writing something like that, right, with no matter who you are, no matter what level of competency you have about who this person is or what's happening in the Olympics, you now know something really monumental happened, and it's right there in those first few lines of the post. Other quick things about why this post is good. All right, so outside of the hook, the good stuff is there's a actionable thing to talk about, right? About how this should be so prioritized in a different way. There's great white space, so it allows somebody to skim, right? And then if we also think back to this post of why this one succeeded so much further, it's because this post that I wrote about the connection request, again, had white space, had no links, didn't over abuse hashtags. We'll talk about that with some of the questions you guys asked. But the other thing was it was actionable. You read this, you learned something, and you found something that you could do. It wasn't me just saying, you know, I believe that this is what you should do, and that's it. It's what you should do, why you should do it, and what you should say in those connection requests, right? So it gave you something tangible to learn. All right, I'm going to stop talking for 2 seconds. I'll stop my screen share. We'll pop over to some of our live questions and start to dive in there, but hopefully a good introduction if you manage to keep up with anything I was just saying.
Okay, now that my ego is sufficiently bruised, let's go.
You're a great sport as always, Paige. We adore you so.
She did ask for my permission. I said, go for it. In the spirit of learning. Okay, so first up we have Katie. So Katie, I will bring you on and you can ask your question live.
Hi, Katie.
Okay, sounds great. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks, Paige, for the chance to ask the question. Hi, Sam. From a personal branding perspective, what do you recommend in terms of posts and maybe just general content when it comes to what I'm going to call some of the hot topics in current events? For example, the one I could think of more recently is the war in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend that we do post and take a stance? Do we not? And then kind of a follow-up question to that, it's very similar to if we observe, say, like one holiday or one month, like Women's History Month and Black History Month, but yet maybe we forget to observe another holiday or another month. I think I'm just thinking of famous people that have done things like this, and then they get, you know, folks have a real strong reaction to it. So walk me through kind of what your recommendations are on those two topics.
Do we have anybody in crisis communications on the phone that'll answer this question even better than I will? Here's what I think, Katie. So I think one, great question. I think two, when we think about whatever we're going to post, we have to understand and make sure that it's, hi, Greg, make sure that we're thinking about, are we comfortable with how this will impact our career? So if our leadership saw it, if our potential clients saw it, if we posted something about this and took a stance one way or the other, would that be okay? Would they be comfortable with it? Are you comfortable with the risk that it puts you in or it doesn't? For me, I like to stay, especially on professional social media. This is just a personal thing, and there's no black and white answer. You just really have to think about it for yourself. I like to stay away from politics. I keep those things, those lines pretty black and white. I did get some commentary about, not voicing my concerns about what was going on between Israel and Gaza, but nothing that I posted about mentioned the war in Ukraine. And I just don't think, one, I have the expertise to talk about that, and two, it's just not my platform. I think the other thing you want to think about is the things that you do believe in that you want to promote and you want to talk about. So even at Sam Sales, I had posted one a couple of years ago how we went and participated. We closed our office early, and how I went and participated in the Black Lives Matter March. And we did have a client that approached us and said, we're uncomfortable having our logo on your website and knowing that you support something like this. And I'm like, well, that is very unfortunate, right? And so what we want to think about too is, are the things that matter to you? If a client wouldn't work with you over that, is that okay to you? Or if your employer would be concerned about that or would have a conversation with you about that, is that a risk you want to take? There are some things that I'm deeply passionate about, like, equal rights for every human being on the planet. And I will post about that. And if you don't want to work with us because of that, that is absolutely a-okay and probably for the best. So those things I'm comfortable with. Others, I just like to steer clear and just not create a lot of drama. Katie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm probably well in line with what you were saying. I do try to keep some personal things because, again, this is, LinkedIn is more of that professional environment. I also think, to your point, my words would be that you have your must-haves, right? Like you have your certain principles that you're willing to stand up for, and that's okay. So you've defined that. So I think that's the takeaway I'm going to have, is that it would be really important just to be very consistent in values and kind of the must-haves versus, okay, we're going to separate this and we're just not even going to touch it. So very helpful. Thank you.
I think we have some good comments in the chat too. The other thing I would say for anybody that's still in corporate America, just consider your social media policy as well. If you're thinking of towing the line, just take a look at what your employer has dictated in terms of again, these are your individual pages, right? So you are at your free will to do whatever you want with. They do not control that. And I think there's even some legal implications to that. But take a look at what their policy is and what they promote, so you can kind of figure out where to toe the line and where not to toe the line as well. Great question. Thank you. Okay, Paige, back over to you.
Okay, next question is, should I schedule my posts through LinkedIn or a third-party tool?
Great question also. So I think one of the things that we cover with a lot of leaders and a lot of founders also is a frustration in using a third-party tool and not kind of understanding the dynamic of how that works with LinkedIn. So quick step back on this. LinkedIn, above all else, values two things more than anything else. Number one, how often you come to the platform. So are you coming into LinkedIn every single day, every single week? There's a reason why you get some notifications on things that you're like, really? Sometimes about somebody's birthday or something that happened, or someone that you haven't seen their content in 6 years, and all of a sudden it's notifying you that they posted. Sometimes they're just sending you those notifications saying, I'm going to turn my camera off and back on, so I refocus. They're sending you those notifications because they want you to come to the platform. So number one, how often do you come in? Number two, what they care about is dwell time. If you're not familiar with that, it's just the amount of time that you dwell on the platform. How long are you there? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 hours? I don't even want to see what my numbers are. But those two things matter first, right? Beyond that, they care about profile creation, how many new members are joining, et cetera. But those two things first. So why does this matter? When you think about a third-party tool, it's an API connector, right, that allows you to auto-post to a variety of platforms. That could be Twitter or X, that could be Instagram, that could be Facebook, it could be LinkedIn. It gives you full breadth. However, with LinkedIn specifically, and I can't speak to the other algorithms because it's not my expertise, but with LinkedIn specifically, when you use that API, very unfortunately, it throttles the posts that you post up because you're not doing what the platform cares about. You're circumventing having to log in, and you're circumventing spending any time there. Now, in theory, your post goes up and 3 or 4 minutes later, you pop in, you start to engage, but because it funneled through via an API through a platform like that, your post will get throttled. I think it's really frustrating for a lot of people to learn that because they have been making an effort with LinkedIn and they're like, why am I not gaining any traction? They hear that, then they go to create an organic post, it flies, and they're like, well, where the hell was this advice, a year ago, 2 years ago? So be mindful of that. However, there is a scheduling feature through LinkedIn. So far, we haven't noticed anything where it tweaks the exposure you get. I will say it's not foolproof, so just be mindful that sometimes those posts will go early. So sometimes you might say something like, on Sundays, I like to do this, and the post shows up on Monday or Saturday, and people are like, huh. So just be mindful of that, right? Make sure that your content is a little bit more evergreen, or maybe don't say specifically a day of the week if you do schedule those posts. But otherwise, we found no change in the algorithm, so feel free to do that. And if you don't know how to do that, if you pop on your post, you should see a little clock, and then you can schedule those posts in advance. And I think it's usually at least an hour in advance, if I'm not mistaken. So if you want to schedule something for like 15 minutes from now, you won't be able to do that. Cool. Thanks, Paige.
Okay, perfect. Moving on to the next. Outside of LinkedIn, where else do you draw the best inspiration for your content? Perhaps from other verticals or platforms?
I get this question a lot. So I think one of the things is, it may probably not surprise you, but may surprise you to think that I don't wake up every single day with ideas of what I want to write in terms of my content. Sometimes I do, and I have 19 ideas, and I'm like, where the hell was this yesterday when I had no inspiration? But I keep a file. It's really a very unexciting draft in my email. And I basically keep a draft of all the things that I want to post about. So on that morning that I do happen to have, 19 different ideas, I write them down really quick. I also make the mistake of being like, this is such a good idea, I won't forget it. And then an hour later, I'm like, what the hell was that? So write it down, make sure you get it there. In terms of inspiration, I love listening to podcasts because I feel like I always have a point of view on 17 different things that they mention in 10 minutes. And I love to pull that out. So if you're not listening to podcasts, reading books, highlighting things as you go, fantastic place to pull inspiration. Or listen to webinars that are happening that are in your space of things that you would talk to clients about, or you're like, oh my gosh, I have something great that I can say about that. All of that stuff is a post. A couple of the podcasts that I love the most, for any of you that need inspiration there. I love listening to Scott Galloway's podcast, which will probably tell you a little bit about my politics. I love listening to HBR Women at Work, just really, really fabulous, condensed learning opportunity. Those Women at Work podcasts, they're anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. And I feel like I learned so much in such a short period of time, really worth my time. I also love listening to Brene Brown. I love Adam Grant. And there's one more I was going to mention that's escaped my memory right now. But just great starting points, hopefully. And just listen to those and have a little, I'll literally listen to them on dog walks and stroller walks, etc. And then I'll pause, thumb a quick note in my file folder, and then come back to post. I want to just say one more thing there. When you think about that, you might listen to a podcast or read something in a publication and say, I've got a really just great ideas on something to mention here. Don't try to condense 3 or 4 or 5 different points in one post. Sometimes that's great if there's a theme, right? So I might say, like, here are 6 faux pas not to do on LinkedIn, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if it's a more complex thought, right, that takes a little bit of detail, and you think I've got 6 of those, that's 6 posts, right? So make sure to segment it out. People have a short attention span. And what I would tell you is, if you're getting started on LinkedIn, right, if your audience is 500 members strong so far, and you're like, I don't quite know how to keep building from here, shorter the better at first, right? They need to be able to build trust in your intelligence and the content that you're sharing quickly. So instead of reading something very long, because they don't know you yet, and they probably don't have the patience, right, to look at what you're saying. So keep them on the shorter end, and again, make sure you focus on those really, really good hooks. I remember one other place, just the books. So biographies and things like that, business books we read, Unreasonable Hospitality, which I loved. I made my team read that as well. Fabulous book if you haven't read it yet. I also love Todd Capone's books. If you guys don't know those either, he's really fantastic. But highlight, star, and then on the days you lack inspiration, go back and read the things that you wrote, because you'll be like, oh, that's right, great post. And then you'll get it up.
Also, anything we talk about on Slack, if somebody has a complaint, has a win, has any sort of conversation, Sam is always responding, that's a great post. You should write about that. That's a great post.
Totally right.
Urging us to post more on LinkedIn. So it comes from everywhere. Okay, there are a couple quick hits that I want to hit from the chat, because they're very detailed logistics questions about posts, and then we'll get Jamison teed up to ask a question live. So the first one is thoughts on including a link within a post.
Oh, don't do it. Okay, so again, lots of banter about this. People say, oh, I use links all the time and it doesn't hurt my post. And then there's the opposite side of it. Again, don't think about what you see. Think about it from the point of LinkedIn. What did we talk about earlier? LinkedIn cares about two things: how often you show up and your dwell time. So if I post something, right, and you very annoyingly see that I write like samsalesconsulting.com and you're like, why don't you just put the link? Hello. There's a reason for that. Because if I make a post and I write my URL, register here, sign up here, subscribe here, you'll see that we really try to use funky words like access below, things like that. If I post a link in my post, what am I telling LinkedIn? Hey, you know all those people that you worked really hard to get to the platform today? I'm going to take a few of them off the platform. And they're going to say, that's super cute. We're going to make sure nobody sees your post. And then I'm like, oh. So here's what you want to think about. In the first hour, this is where the traction of your post matters the most, right? So whether how it's engaged with, how it gets picked up, the comments that go on, that first hour is critical. If you have low engagement in that first hour, it's usually going to continue a little bit of that low engagement. And we can talk about some hacks there. But after that first hour, you can go back and edit your post, and at that point, put the link in. So if you really, really, really want to game the system the way that we kind of do, it would be this: write your post and simply say link in the comments, or if you really want to get tricky, just put L ** NK like we do, or just say access below in the comments, something like that. And then have someone else, usually Paige on our team, post the comment. Don't ask Paige, she's ours. But somebody else will post the link in the comments for you of access, right? Have some of your team like that comment, so it's first and foremost at the top, and then go back in an hour and add your link. Is it a pain in the ass? It absolutely is a pain in the ass. Will your post get much more visibility? Yes. So you can ignore all this advice and put the link in your post still. Just keep in mind, who do you want to see the post? Do you want a very limited audience, but to have easy access to the link? Or do you want a broader audience that will eventually have access to the link and in the link in the comments as well? Or just write it out like we do, samsalesconsulting.com, and then go to our events tab.
Yeah. And when she says dot, she means she writes out DOT rather than putting the actual period.
Literally the dot. It's very
DOT.
exciting.
Okay, one more detailed question, and then Jameson, we're ready for you. This is from Lexi. I saw in the recent newsletter that multiple tags in a LinkedIn post are going to hurt how it performs. How many tags should you have max? 2 to 3?
This is great question also. So I want you guys again to think a little bit about what used to happen. Somebody would post on LinkedIn and they would tag 16 different people. Raise your hand if this has ever happened to you, and someone you barely know is like, I would love to hear from, and then tags a million people in the comments or in the post. When that happened, right, it was an artificial way to push those notifications, right, to those individuals and have them be like, oh, what's this post? Have them run over to the post, read it, and then be like, all right, I'll engage, right, you tagged it, whatever. Because that was such an annoyance, what LinkedIn did was basically impact the algorithm that if you do that, and if that audience does engage, at least 50% of that audience doesn't engage within the first hour, your post will get killed. So what you want to think about, right, is if you post one person, there's no harm, if you will, in terms of your exposure to that, because that's a normal thing. You might say, I recently read this book by a particular person. Catherine on our team did XYZ, or you celebrate somebody's promotion, or you give one person kudos, right? Which LinkedIn is big on doing on the platform. But as soon as you get to 2 or 3 or 4, right, those people, at least 50% of them need to engage. It is totally fine to tag those people in. Just make sure they have a heads up and say, I'm going to tag you in this post. I'm going to send you the link to the post. Please come and engage with it, right? That way we can actually make sure that people do see it, right? And that me tagging you doesn't harm you. Hopefully that gives you an explanation. Only other kind of workaround around that, if you still want to tag people, just add a comment in, right? And say, massive thanks to these 16 people who made a big difference to me during my time here if you're changing jobs or whatever. Okay, Jameson.
Great.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello, Paige. I appreciate the plenty of heads up that I was going to come off mute, and yet I still find myself nervous. I've thought about getting the urgent bird gets the worm tattooed on my body.
Hey, man, I think we'd have to pay you some serious sponsorship dollars if you did that. Keep us posted. Thanks, man.
I'll give you some context of where my question is coming from. I started my career in finance and parlayed that experience to get a job for a software company that sells to finance organizations, and did some consulting, and now I'm in sales, still selling into finance organizations. So I gear most of my post around finance and thought leadership in the finance space, but the only people that, for the most part, ever interact are salespeople and coworkers and former coworkers. So not exactly my ICP. So I'm reaching out to see if you can help me figure out how to either shift my messaging or change my audience that's actually engaging.
Yeah, I'll give you a helping hand. So if you can just shoot me an email after this, I'll remember to take a look at your content, and then I can give you just some quick verbal feedback, and I'll take a look at what you're posting. I think you bring up a really good question though, right? And I think, again, a pretty typical mistake that we see people make in their kind of content journey. So we think about our ICP, right? And let's say for me, it would be heads of sales enablement, CROs, SVPs of sales. If the only content I wrote was just for them at just that level, right? Well, and CMOs and chief communications officers as well. If I only wrote that, right, my network, unfortunately, isn't packed with those people, right? At almost 100,000 followers, there's a whole mess of titles and experience levels in there. But what I want to think about is I also want to get engagement from the person that reports to the person that reports to the person that reports to the person that I'm trying to target. So if you actually look today, I posted something specific for BDRs, right? Because what's also going to happen with those BDRs? They're going to take my content, right? My dark social score will probably go up for that. It'll share instant Slacks. And maybe at some point, an SVP will be like, I keep seeing this girl Sam McKenna, our content gets shared. Like, who the hell is this? They'll come over to my profile. We'll see that they viewed my profile. I'll connect with them. They'll become a first degree connection. And then we will go for the hard sell. What? Who said that? So think about this in terms of the array and the broadness of your content, right? Make it for all of the levels that you've got, whether it's entry level or not. But I think also go a little bit out of just the content that's specific to what you're trying to sell. So when you think about that, that might be, you know, career advice that you have for people, leadership advice, like how you show up prepared for one-on-ones. It might be just how to be a really good corporate, you know, employee. Yeah, I think that content really matters because, again, you're broadening your TAM, right? Your total addressable market, and you're building in new followers. I want to say just two things there too. The majority of our leads, right, when we get inbound, and I mean, our team here can attest that the majority of our inbound, when we say, how'd you hear about us? It says LinkedIn, right? I followed Sam on LinkedIn for years, and I'm like, thank you so much for coming. Who are you? Because I usually don't get engagement from the people that want to buy from us. They're the ones that are reading, and they rarely engage, especially if they're your higher level decision makers. They often don't engage because they know that we're going to go in for the kill at some point and try to sell them. So they'll just read, and when they're ready, they'll come to us, which happens all the time. The other thing is we get a ton of referrals, right? People that get referred to us from people outside of our space. So one of my favorite comments to get is, I'm not in sales, but I love following your content. Because all of those people, they sit in boardrooms, they sit in conference rooms, they sit in Zoom meetings, right? And so when someone's like, oh, by the way, we're looking for someone to do this, someone over here in a totally, you know, obscure cross-functional team is going to be like, oh, I know this girl Sam that posts about it. And they're like, who? And she's like, yeah. And then we'll send my profile over. So consider, right, like about 70 to 80% of your content should be thought leadership, should be teaching stuff, et cetera. But carve a certain portion of that content out that's not specific to what you sell, and just as something that helps people from your expertise of how to lead, what to read, what you're inspired by, et cetera.
Okay, great. We are getting a lot of questions in the Q&A, so we're trying to get through them as soon as possible. Next up, Megan submitted the question, how do you see LinkedIn evolving in the next few years, and how can we stay ahead of the curve?
So one thing to just to quickly mention, I don't know if we dropped our link for our next webinar page. Because we're gonna do that soon. Because we got so many questions, right? Not only in the Q&A and then in advance, we're gonna do another one of these in September. We already have our August one teed up, but come join us in September if we don't get to your question. How is LinkedIn going to change and evolve in the coming years? So I think one really interesting thing, a quote I always say about LinkedIn is, your competition is either on LinkedIn right now and you need to catch up, or they're not and you have a competitive advantage. What you have to think about what's going to change about the platform is, I think you're going to see, unfortunately, for those of us who have been on for a long time, our reach is going to lessen because there's going to be more competition in terms of content on the platform. We, like I mentioned earlier, we run a line of business called LinkedIn Executive Branding, where we basically take C-suite executives of Fortune 500 companies, celebrities, et cetera. We interview them, we write their content, and then we manage their entire profile on the back end. Very, very fun. But when we do that, right, when we talk about that is the line of business for us that's blown up this year, because I think people are finally catching on to the value and the importance and the reach, and frankly, the low cost per impression that they can get on this platform. So where I think it's going to change, even in this last year, I've seen a 48%, I think, increase in content on the platform. That's huge, right? So for a lot of you, you might also say that makes sense because my reach has drastically dipped. So for most creators, we've seen about a 66% drop in the reach we used to get. I actually just did a test with this the other day. I posted a picture of myself, Jen Allen, for anybody who follows her. And if you don't, oh my God, run and go do it. Jen Allen, myself, and LL Cool J here in DC. About 18 months ago, I posted it and it had 60,000 impressions. When I just posted a couple of months ago, 17,000 impressions. I'm still very excited about that, but very different than what I got before. So you're going to see more competition. But I think what's going to change about this platform is you're also going to see bigger, broader executives who have never built a voice, who have focused on things like, Forbes and all sorts of industry trade publications and things like that, find a voice over here. So I think it's actually going to change for the better. A little bit less noise from everybody that decides they're going to be an influencer after being in the workforce for 6 minutes, and more content from people that we can really learn from, that we're dying to hear from. Even Dwight Schrute is on the platform, Rainn Wilson. So we're still trying to sign him. If anybody has connections, keep us posted.
Okay, here's a quick rapid fire one. How many times do you recommend posting per week or per day for the overachievers?
7 times a day. Just kidding. Don't take that to the bank. Couple of thoughts here. So I think there's usually some pullback, some nerves, I think, from anybody that's getting started on LinkedIn to think, well, I've never posted before, and what I'm going to come out of the gate, I'm going to post 2 and 3 and 4 times a week. Like, people are going to think that's so weird. As lovely as you are, I promise you rather, nobody is paying attention to what you do to that level of granularity. They might say, I see you posting a lot. And you might say, I know it's a muscle I'm trying to build. I'm trying to really be consistent. I'm glad you're noticing. Leave it at that, right? We've got to do things in practice, right, to build those muscles. But don't worry too much about that. What I would say as just an entry level start for you is think about at least twice a week. I will also say be patient, because your audience, right, is also going to think, number one, if you start to post, they want to make sure you have intelligent things to say. And then when they start to engage, you need to engage back, because they want to know that if they make the investment in engaging with you, they're going to stick around, they're going to build a relationship with you, but also go and look at their content and engage back. If you see somebody that's commented 3 or 4 times right in the last couple of weeks, be like, well, I wonder what they post, right? I try to do that, pop over to their LinkedIn and just drop a comment real quick, even if it's something that's 2 or 3 days old, right? To just be nice right back to them. So think about at least 2 times a week. I think that's a really good start. And here's what I would advise. Avoid Mondays if you can. Monday is the highest traffic day for content on LinkedIn, bar none. Why? Everybody wakes up on Monday. It's like New Year's Day, and they're like, this is the year I'm going to really make a difference. Mondays tend to be the day that everybody has a New Year's resolution that they're going to start posting on LinkedIn, and they get content out there. Furthermore, everybody posts between 8 and 10 a.m. on Monday. So if you post and it's like your 1 or 2 posts of the week on Monday, what's going to happen? You're going to be competing with a whole hell of a lot of traffic for the visibility on your posts. So avoid that. What you want to think about is try a Tuesday, try a Wednesday, and then the second one, try a weekend. On the weekends, you're going to find more executive engagement. So research recently found that executives spend an average of 42 minutes, that's director plus titles. They'll spend an average of 42 minutes on LinkedIn on the weekends. Wow. Right? So think about your higher brow, higher level posts on the weekends. You're more targeted, specific to your TAM, specific to senior titles on the weekends. What you're also going to find is you're probably going to get lower engagement on those posts because you're writing for a narrower TAM, right? That narrower total addressable market, but you are going to get quite a bit of impressions. And if you even just do a quick side thing, in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, keep a list of the executives that you're really interested in getting in front of. Hop over to that list on the weekend, see if they're active on LinkedIn, see if their bubbles are filled in your inbox. There's a great way that you can capitalize on that weekend traffic. So I would say start 2 times, right? At the very least, right? And then start on a Tuesday or Wednesday if it's just that, and then save one for the weekends, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. Final note that I just want to mention there. We get a lot of questions. Is there a perfect time to post on LinkedIn? There is no perfect time to post on LinkedIn. If there was a perfect time to post on LinkedIn, everybody would post at that time, and then everybody would be competing with each other. The thing I would just tell you is make sure to post the content according to the target market that you want to address. So if I'm trying to get people in EMEA or the UK, I'm probably not going to post at 8 o'clock at night Eastern time, right? If I'm trying to get to the West Coast, I'm probably not going to post at 8 a.m. Eastern time, maybe 9 a.m., maybe 9:30 when they're waking up and they're doom scrolling in bed and they happen to see my content. But just think about where your audience is, right? And get that post generated at that time. Hopefully it lives on 2 or 3 days, usually is about the full run of a post, right? But think about at least timing there.
Okay, great. So this question is from Heather. How do I overcome the feeling of I am not as engaging as someone like Sam McKenna? So why would someone follow me?
Why would someone follow you? So great question, Heather, and thanks for the very kind words. I think a few things here. So it doesn't have to matter with your engagement, just matters what you say, right? Like, so let's think about the things that you can teach somebody or the things that you can offer in terms of guidance, inspiration, etc. A lot of people have this worry, right? Who cares what I have to say, right? And who's going to pay attention to what I have to say? And what I would tell you is just over 1% of that audience on LinkedIn posts at least once a week. Yours truly included, of course, but just over that 1%. So what the other stat to think about that is almost half of the audience members on LinkedIn, or the active audience members on LinkedIn, are coming in at least once a week for at least 5 minutes. Why? If they're not posting, they're coming into research and they're coming to read. They're coming to learn, right? So they want to understand, what is it that people have to share with me? No matter what level you are, you have something valuable to share with somebody. So if you are an intern, our intern, Emily, just shared a really great post this week that did pretty well. Shared, lessons that she's learning being an intern for us. The advice I would give you is stay in your lane. I get a little nervous when, let's say, our intern Emily says, like, here are 6 things a CRO should know. And I'm like, maybe we don't want to give that kind of advice just yet, right? But think about what impacts you. What do you do really well? What tips and tricks do you have for people? What inspires you? Again, how do you run your leadership meetings? What are things you wish you had known when you were at this stage of your career? Whatever that might be, things that you did when you were just graduating college to stand out from the noise. There's so much to share. So just think about, what advice do you have for the people around you, right? And then if you're seeking more inspiration, think about what you talk about on your calls, whether it's with your internal customers, your external customers, whether you're handling matters if you're an attorney, whether you have discovery calls with your clients. Hello to Gatsby in the background of Catherine's camera. Think about that kind of stuff, right? Because all of the stuff that you talk about can be great inspiration for your posts. And just get started. One quick tip that I can give you to make sure that you continue building your network is, one, stay close to your posts when you've got them. You want to try to get at least 10 comments within 1 hour. That's the goal. And if you can do that, right, your posts will slowly start to continue to escalate. Those 10 comments within 1 hour, please, for the love of God, do not make them your own 10 comments. But as soon as somebody comments, here's a quick little trick you can do. So if I post and Paige says, oh my gosh, this was great, like I always do this, etc., I'll comment and I'll say totally yada yada, and then I'll ask a question. I'll be like, Paige, like, how did you learn to do this? Did somebody teach you? Did you read this somewhere? And then Paige is like, oh, I got asked a question. I want to come back and answer. And I'm like, yeah. And what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to get Paige to come back and do 2 things. Add another comment, which gets me to 3. Woo! And then the other thing that I'm trying to do is continue what's called a conversation thread in a LinkedIn comment. So if Paige comments, right, it's kind of like a reply all, right? Then it's my comment, then it's Paige's. Let's see, it's my Paige's comment, then mine, then Paige's, then mine again, probably, right? Or maybe I tag somebody else and bring somebody else in that conversation thread. When I do that, I can get to 10 just like that. Once you've got that, let's say about 3 days after your post goes up, go back to your comments and go back to your likes. Who were those 2nd and 3rd degree connections, right, that commented on your content, and go and connect with them. If they're anywhere remotely within your ICP, right, go and connect with them and say, thank you so much for engaging with my content recently. Always nice to see new people entering the conversation. Some of you that are on this Zoom probably got that message from me at some point, and you're like, I see your tricks. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but thank you so much for hanging around with us. But think about that, because that systematic growth of your audience is what's going to help you get going faster. The road is long to 10,000 followers. The long road is much shorter to 20 to 30 to 40, but keep at it. Okay, I'll stop talking, I promise.
Okay, great. Not great.
Okay, great. Thank God.
Okay, great. Finally, just trying to get a word in. Austin submitted this question. I feel like you just covered it, but he said, how do you maximize getting followers and interactions on each post? I think we pretty much covered that. But Austin, DM us if you have any other questions, or do you have anything else to add on top of that, Sam?
Just the other thing to add, go and engage with other people. This is just the easiest two birds, one stone thing. Number one, you want to engage with others because there's so much magic in you adding a first comment or you adding a thoughtful comment to somebody else's post. People will see it, they'll come over to your profile and you can keep building there. But two, I would say the two birds, one stone. If you comment on somebody's post or if you DM somebody, the odds of them seeing your content next time are exponentially higher. So if you run one of our plays that is in our prospecting playbook, I believe, what you do is you basically create a list in Sales Navigator of the people that you constantly want to get in front of, that you're going to drop comments on, your executives, your C-suite, whoever you want to get in front of. And then when you go and add comments to their posts, if they do post, right, the next time you post, they're more than likely to see it. So it's a great way to keep them thinking about you in hopefully a non-annoying way. The other thing I would say is think about some key influencers. So who are people that are key influencers within your space? If you're in sales, right? Think about, like, again, going back to a Jen Allen, think about an Amy Volas, think about a Todd Capone, think about a Brian Lamana at Gong. People like that. Go and set an alert on LinkedIn. Just hit the bell on their profile. Click on their profile, top right-hand corner is their bell, and get notified when they post. And here's what you can do that's really cool. When they post, read the post and be the first person to comment. Add something thoughtful, because by being the first, you're probably also going to be the first comment that's read by all the other people coming in, and then you'll get a bunch of people that like it. I commented on Jen Allen's really, really good post the other day, and I think my comment on her post got more likes than my post that day. Womp womp. But right, all those people get to see you and they get to figure out who you are. They come over to your profile and then they start to follow you. So don't just post, go and engage with other people.
Okay, this one comes from a CEO. He said, I have a struggle between being myself and being a CEO of my company, as both are different and I need to do both on LinkedIn. So love to hear your thoughts on that, and also balancing company content and also personal content.
Yeah, so I think a few things. One, let's maybe kind of caveat to company page really quick, because I know that was a question we got quite a few of. What should we be doing on the company page? Should we be posting a lot? I would say don't make a massive investment in your company page. Make sure that it looks as you know, buttoned up as your website in terms of what you sell, how to reach you, things that you offer. Make sure all of that's there. Your logo, for crying out loud, make sure your logo is loaded on the company page. But then the other thing is I would drop content there that your company content, your firm content, will never get as much engagement as your personal content. So those coming from your actual voice as a human being on LinkedIn. So get some of that. Now, let's think about what it is that we post in terms of our voice. There's no, for me as CEO, thinking about my personal post versus my Sam Sales post, there's no real magic balance, right? There's no kind of algorithm or scientific formula that I'm doing on the back end to figure out. I really just write what I'm inspired to write in the moment. But I think what you can also do is you can mix some of that personal and professional content. So think about just your word choice and positioning. So we might say something like, you know, when we create, you know, LinkedIn executive branding engagements with clients, here are 3 things we think about for an executive's profile. So I'm kind of using word choice to position. We do LinkedIn executive branding, but at the same time, I'm saying, here are the 3 things that you should think of. I'm still trying to educate you. Or maybe I talk about something personal, something I've overcome, right? And I'll say, you know, when scaling Sam Sales, here are 3 things that I thought about. You know, did I want to raise capital? Did I want to bootstrap? Did I want to do whatever? So it's still promoting our brand, right? But it's teaching something and it's giving, you know, a context on something slightly unrelated while still saying I'm a business owner. Just make sure whatever that content is, right? It's not just self-promotional, come join our webinar, but there's some context there. There's a preview. There's something in there that makes somebody want to read it. And more importantly, wants to continue to read what you write.
Okay, next up, I know we have about 10 minutes. So reminder that we have another workshop if your question didn't get answered on September 13th. We're doing this all over again. So be sure to register for that one. Okay. Someone said, what in the world is going on with LinkedIn's reach lately? Do you have any insights into that?
Just what I said earlier. So hopefully that answered your question, right? 44, 46, I think it is 46 or 48% more content being shared on the platform. Very slim margin due to us, but very excited to be part of that. And then just the way that the algorithm is kind of reshaping how it looks at content, right? I did see a recent stat that while reach is dipping, people are seeing about 10% more views from their immediate network. I can't speak to that directly. I did see the stat just this morning, but something to also consider that those views might be higher instead of just a broader market from your network directly.
Okay, the next one is from a VP of sales. He said, how do I get actual quality meetings, not just views and followers from building my brand?
Great question. So I think we also had a question about this in terms of like some of the plays that we run on our side, right? So I recently posted about our It's Been a While campaign that we run. So I would say just a few things. How do you get meetings from this? I'm going to segment this down in a couple of different ways, and that will probably run us out of time. So number one, thinking about where LinkedIn plays a role in your sequence, your cadence, your flow, whoever you use. When you think about this, what most people do, again, mistake is that they hit their buyers 3 times in one day. So they will send them a connection, or they'll actually look at their LinkedIn profile, they will send them an email, and they will cold call them. Badger your buyers into meeting with you. Why don't you? So here's what I would say instead. One, kill the LinkedIn view. If you might remember from earlier, if you don't have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which many of your buyers probably don't, you can only see the last 5 people who have looked at your profile. So I think it's a nonsensical kind of tactic there. One of our prospects, also named Bobby, says that he sees one of his sales reps that's competing with us that looks at his profile like every single day. And he's like, it's getting a little creepy. So be aware of that. What I would tell you though is use the LinkedIn connection request as your 4th touch. So I would do this on day 1, Thursday or Friday. I would send your show me, you know me email. On day 2, why Thursday or Friday? On day 2, your second email is going to go out less than 48 hours after your first one. More than 24 hours, slow your roll, but less than 48. So if I send a show me, you know me email on Thursday, that means my second email is going to go out Saturday morning, Friday, Sunday morning, Friday night, Sunday night, whatever. But send that message then, 3rd email, Wednesday, Thursday, the next week, and then send a connection request on Friday. And here's what your connection request looks like. Hey, Catherine, my name might look familiar. By the way, I've written a post about this, so if you missed the script, you can go and look at it. But my name might look familiar as I've reached out to you a few times over email. I would still be grateful for, appreciative of the chance to chat with you about how Sam Sales can help XYZ organization. If you're ever up for a chat, let me know. I think that's right under 300 characters, which is the limit, but send that over. And what I think is really great about that, right, is that you're trying in a different way. You're adding a human element. You're saying, hey, I've tried the first kind of older school way, and now I'm coming over here. The person can also see your picture, see your face, see your experience, see your about section. Make sure that is all buttoned up. But I would start there. Quick side note here, when the person replies, more often than not, they're not like, oh, thank God you reached out here. I can't wait to meet, unfortunately. But what they do respond with is either a thanks period or nothing period. And then you're like, what the hell do I do with that? Just respond and say, thank you so much for connecting. Looking forward to staying in touch. Just that simple extra mile, right? Of you, 1, not pitching them immediately, and then 2, saying thank you will be huge. This opens the door for you to nurture them, for you to look and see if their little green bubbles are lit on the weekends in your inbox so that you can nurture them there. Start the relationship that way. The other thing that I would just say there, pitch slapping, that's with a P. Please, please, please don't do this. So just back to the earlier conversation of why you should have a context in your connection request. Let's say you don't. Let's say you play volume game, connect with the 16 VPs of sales you want to get in front of. When they accept, then what? What do you do? At that point, that's usually when people are like, Sam, thanks for connecting. Hey, how's business going these days? And you're like, oh my God, I want to jump out a window. Or they'll say, you know, we're the leading IT provider of XYZ. Do you want to talk to us? No, thanks. Don't do the pitch slap. Earn the right to the meeting with them, right? Make the investment, nurture them, engage in a relationship, send something valuable to them. The It's Been a While campaign. So if you are posting content on LinkedIn, here's something that we've started doing. whether this is inbound, right, where somebody is connecting with you, or we go and connect with somebody, profile view, second degree connection, they said something really interesting, whatever it may be. We run a campaign that's basically, we will take their profile as soon as we connect, if they're VP plus, if they're in our ICP, et cetera, and we will very elegantly drop them in a Slack channel. So I'm sure there are 100 different technological ways to do this better. This is just our 2.0, don't want to spend $100,000 on new other technology way. So we drop their link in a Slack channel, and then we wait about 5 weeks. Because I'm posting content a lot, in theory, they're going to see our content, right? Or my content. So in about 5 weeks, we go back and we'll say, hey, Bill, it's been a few weeks since we've connected. It's been a while since we connected. You can even go back to people that you connected with eons ago and do this. I hope you've seen some of my content floating around. What I would love to talk to you about is how we might be able to support XYZ company. From this to this to this, this is what we're working on. If you're ever interested or think there'd be somebody on your team that would like to have a chat with us, let us know. We've taken 5 weeks to hopefully have them see some of my content, right? And gain a little respect, build rapport, have alignment that, you know, what I have to say is impactful. It's amazing how this will work because you've already connected, they've seen your content, they build trust, you build rapport, and then they'll say yes. A lot of people write back and they're like, great tactic, not for us right now. Can you check back in 6 months? And we're like, yes, we'll be right there. But we continue to nurture them within that 6 months. A lot of other people will say, you bet, you know, can I introduce you to XYZ? I can't tell you the amount of opportunities we've gotten just by running this. In fact, in our first month, 20 meetings, well, almost 20 meetings we got set up just by doing this with VP plus titles at organizations of over 500 employees. Really awesome tactic with not a whole hell of a lot of effort. So hopefully 2 things that'll help you there. Final thing, if you do have Sales Navigator, check out Expand the Sandbox as a playbook. It's a whopping $45, actually only $36 today with 20% off. Look at that fast math. I think I did that wrong, but anyway, no, I think I did it right. So check that out too, because that'll give you some spear phishing campaigns that helped us land a deal with a CRO of a $6 billion company with about 13 minutes of prospecting effort. She might even be on this webinar today. Hello, Joy. Okay, I think we will close it out at that. Just want to say 158 people still on. Hopefully this was of value to you. Really excited to see our, I think, almost 50% turnout at our peak today. Amazing. If you're not connected on LinkedIn, please do say hello. If you're not signed up for our newsletter, please come over to our website, samsalesconsulting.com, to check it out and hang out with us. And of course, if we can help you with anything, LinkedIn or otherwise, give a shout. But appreciate you guys so much and hope to also see you in September. Have a great rest of your summer. Thanks, Paige and Catherine.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.